Good evening and welcome to tonight's Parent Academy Youth Mental Health First Aid, why it is important for parents to be proactive and responsive to their child's mental health and well-being. We welcome you tonight and we're very pleased to have our SAFE counselors. SAFE stands for Student Advocate for Engagement. These counselors work with many of our students that are struggling with mental health challenges, as well as just other teenage angst, those kinds of things within our schools. And we're very blessed and grateful to have these individuals in our school district. They will be presenting tonight. I do want to, in just a few minutes, I do want to share with you, there will be an evaluation link in the chat. Please, if you have a few minutes before you leave, if you would just click that on and answer. It's very brief. It really gives us a lot of helpful feedback as we seek to continually improve upon our parent academies that we offer each year. Also, on April 13th, we have our last Parent Academy of the year, and it will be totally student-led, and it will be on Sources of Strength, which is one of our upstream suicide prevention programs, and it really focuses on empowering, supporting our students, parents, staff, and community through the power of connection and spreading messages of hope, help, and strength. So we hope that you will join us for a wonderful night with our students sharing about their experience with Sources of Strength. With that said, I am going to turn it over to our SAFE counselors, and they will introduce themselves as they present. Thank you so much again for being with us.
This is a picture of our team. We have two coaches who serve at Middle School. We have Kramer serving at Liberty High School. We have Moser, who will be also presenting tonight, who serves at Air Academy and Middle School. We also have Cathrine, who serves at the Middle School Discovery Training, and lastly, Kristen, who serves at the high school for Discovery Training. That interview, state council stands for Student Advocate for Professionals, professional service providers, who have been influences or mental health collaborate will take every student back. Topics for today.
That wasn't the desktop, is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your patience. Sorry about that. We appreciate your patience and understanding and giving us grace, as this has been the year of us all learning new technology challenges. So once again, my name is Kristen Seagren. I am the SAFE counselor at Rampart High School and Mountain Ridge Middle School. On the screen, you see my team. We have Sue Coast serving at Timberview Middle School, Patty Kramer serving at Liberty High School, Julie Moser, who will be presenting with me this evening. She is at Air Academy and Eagleview Middle School. Kathy Matthynssens serves at the middle school for Discovery Canyon campus, and Kristen Bendig, who's also at the high school at Discovery Canyon campus. Like Martha introduced, SAFE Counselor stands for Student Advocate for Engagement. We're a unique group of mental health professionals and special service providers who have the distinct opportunity to work at the secondary level with students who are identified as at risk. As SAFE counselors, we define as at-risk students who are challenged with truancy, behavior incidences, and mental health needs. We support our students with evidence-based interventions and collaborate with our schools to engage and help every student be the best they can be. Some objectives we have for tonight are to help work with you on gaining knowledge about children's mental health well-being, what it looks like and what we should be concerned about. We're also going to work on developing some skills on how to encourage empowerment in our kids. We're going to explore some tactics for strengthening relationships, and we're going to learn strategies to encourage resiliency in your child. Looking at mental health well-being, how do we define mental health well-being? Well, we really look at how an individual realizes his or her own capabilities and how they can cope with normal stresses of life and how they can produce effectively and make contributions to their environment around them. What positive mental health being looks like. So what we want to see when we're looking at our kids at home is we want to make sure they're sleeping well and being well rested. We know that's a real challenge with adolescents especially, but we want to really encourage that sleep patterns and habits that are positive. We want them doing things that they enjoy. We want them having good relationships and connections, which has been a true challenge this year. We're going to talk more about that throughout the presentation. We want them staying active and eating well and being able to really truly manage stress when it comes to them. We want them building confidence and employing resiliency, the ability to problem solve and bounce back when we're faced with adversities. Maintaining positive attitudes and healthy energy levels. And lastly, we're going to talk about, and hopefully seeing, setting realistic goals. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Julie Moser.
Thanks, Kristen. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to look for if you're concerned about your child's mental health or when you need to be aware and concerned for your child. I think first thing I always want to tell parents is that you know your child. You have been with that child for a very long time, and it is so important that you follow that instinct and that gut that you have if you feel like there's something not quite right. And honor that. I know a lot of times as parents, we put it off and think, oh, I'm just worrying, but just honor it. Talk to some people, talk to some professionals, things like that if you're starting to have some of those concerns. And we're looking at sometimes the feelings of sadness or being withdrawn for more than 2 weeks. That can be a real concern. Thoughts of suicide or self-harm. Having intense concerns or fears that get in the way of daily activities, and that's really the biggest piece is that it's getting in your way of your daily functioning and your daily activities, and also the amount of time that is happening if it's consistent, like we said earlier, for over 2 weeks. If your child is using drugs or alcohol repeatedly, some severe mood swings that can cause negative impacts on relationships. Those mood swings happen in puberty anyways, but the thing is if it's really having a huge impact on your family and on the relationships, that's where you need to be concerned and start thinking about things. Drastic changes in behavior or personality. If your child was a complete introvert and now suddenly is an extrovert, those are things to be a little bit concerned about, is just to have that awareness. And again, it's the awareness and also the inability to regulate emotions. Unexplainable change in academic performance. This one I really want to touch on a little bit tonight. We know that there are a lot of children out there that are really struggling. They're used to being in the classroom environment, and that is not what we've had this year. And so a lot of kids are really struggling with their academic performance. And this is really something that if you work together as a family and with the schools, to figure out a system that will work. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But that's something to also be aware of. And then poor sleeping or eating habits. If you see that your kid is really tired every day, trying to figure out if you can't explain what that's about or what's going on, that is something that you kind of need to be aware of and maybe just have that conversation with them. And so we are going to do a poll everywhere. And if you will go to the chat, you will see a link that you can click on that will allow you to respond to our poll. And we're going to try and find out a little bit of information about the what your thoughts are and what kind of things you are concerned about and worry about with your child. And so what we'll be able to see is what, so we talk about isolation from family and friends. That can always be a concern, especially in this time right now. And then the schools are opening up here soon, and we are looking forward for them to have that social connection some more. We're also talking about mood and behavior changes. Sometimes a lot of kids, especially when they hit the teenage years, that can be a real struggle. Also, if our kids are not as active as they used to be, then that can be a huge deal. I know a lot of sports and things like that were shut down, and then that can really cause an impact on mood and behavior. But in a typical year, if you're seeing some of these things, that can really be a concern. It looks like the majority of our poll says that we're kind of struggling. Oh, it's changing again. It looks like the majority is really with the isolation from friends and family. And that this year, I think we all are really seeing that so much. There's such a significance. We were so excited to actually be in the same room today as safe counselors because we really rely on each other for our support. Lack of motivation, absolutely. We're seeing that so much in the counseling center. We know that kids are really struggling. It's a lot easier to just, because, oh, well, I'm at home. I struggle sometimes too when I'm working at home with staying motivated for schoolwork. And so think about our kids struggling with that as well. So we know as adults we struggle with it, and our kids can struggle with that too. So one thing I think it's always important is to really model, and we'll talk more about that as we go on today in this presentation. Thank you all for participating in that. We've got several of these to go, so thank you. One second. Okay. Kristen, or am I ahead?
Did you share your screen? I did. No, I didn't. Go to Teams. There, no. There you go. Share. Okay. Is that the one is that the PowerPoint? Yep. Okay. And go to current slide. There. Okay.
I think we're off one though, Kristen. Yep. So sorry about that. Thank you again for your patience with the struggles with technology. So how does it respond when you are concerned about your child or when you have concerns? We are lucky to have many trained people in our district for youth mental health first aid. And one of the acronyms that they give us is something called ALGEE. And it's ALGEE, and it's a program that's based in Australia. So it's kind of interesting. They have chosen this. I don't know why exactly they chose ALGEE as the term, but it's a great one. But so number one is acknowledge that your child, when your child shares what they're going through, it's so important that we acknowledge what they're going through and we value what their concerns and worries are. Secondly, listening non-judgmentally is so important because a negative reaction or response can oftentimes shut a child down, and that they're not going to want to respond to you anymore or come and open up to you. And so that can really be a challenge. You also want to give reassurance and information. Talk to your child, say it's going to be okay, or we're going to work through this. This is a really tough one. We're going to work through and figure out what we need to do. And get some more information. Maybe you go to a professional, and that's where the next piece, the encourage appropriate professional help. Maybe you go and talk to the pediatrician, or you find counseling. You just reach out and figure out what kind of things you can do to support your child as they're going through this. It can definitely be a challenge, because I know as parents, myself definitely, I try to fix things. And children oftentimes do not want you to fix. They would rather have you, they want you to listen. They want you to be there for them. And that can be challenging as parents, because it's our babies. It's our little heart that is hurting. And then we also have encourage self-help, and that's whatever works for them. So what works for me may not work for my daughter. But for me, going out and exercising in the fresh air is what really helps me. Art can be really works for some people. For me, it frustrates me. So you got to figure out what works for you. It's definitely whatever brings you to that kind of peaceful, calm place. And so now we're going to do a poll everywhere. And if you will go again to the link, it's in the chat. And we're going to figure out which one of these do you think would be the most challenging for you to do with your child? Which do you think would be the toughest? For me, I think the listening non-judgmentally is really a challenge, because again, I like to fix things, but also it's hard when it's your child, because it's been our job, especially when they become teenagers, to kind of direct them and to move them forward and to help them as they go through things. And so it's very natural as parents to be like, nope, this is what you need to do. But that's not what the kid needs in this moment, especially if they're sharing with you something that they're concerned about. And another parent had shared with me is that they said that one thing actually was a safe counselor, but they said they really struggle with, because their kids are so much in the moment that like they're in a relationship for 2 weeks, and then the relationship breaks up, and their whole world is over. They just think, oh my gosh, this is awful. But really, they just need that time for someone to listen, to talk to them, to work through them with it. And sometimes as adults, we don't realize how much and how important things like this become to our child, and how that becomes everything for them. And how the results on the poll, it looks like the majority of us are the listen non-judgmentally. So I'm glad to hear that I'm in good company with that. It is definitely something so challenging. And then the other piece, I agree with the give reassurance and information. Sometimes whether it's that we don't know exactly how to help. And that's one of the biggest challenges. And one thing, it's so great that you guys are here. And again, that I think one of the best things I can tell you is to listen to your gut and listen to your instincts, because you do know as a parent, because that is your child. And then also acknowledging what your child shares as they go through, that can be a really tough one. But it is so important to be able to just tell them, I hear you, this sounds really tough. Thanks for sharing that with me. Some of those kind of statements are really helpful when you're going through some of these things. And now I'm going to have Kristen come back over, and she is going to talk to you a little bit about how to develop empowerment in your child.
Thanks, Julie. All right. Okay, when we're looking at empowerment in your child, some things we wanted to highlight for you guys is really encouraging your child to do leadership roles. This can be both in the home and at school. So at school, that might look like joining a club. It doesn't necessarily mean they need to be the president of their class. It could simply be just being an active participant. But even being in a club is really taking on that leadership role because you're representing the school both in and out. So that is one fantastic way. Also, even doing classes like teachers' assistants. Those are roles in high school that kids can get that gives them that leadership role in the classroom. At home, it can look like mentoring for younger siblings. It can be activating a role on like youth group in the church. It can be a community extracurricular activity. Lots of different ways to find those empowerment roles. When we're faced with adversity and challenges, really encouraging your student to come up with 3 creative solutions to any problem. Again, like Julie talked about, sometimes as parents, we want to be those problem solvers because we know, because we've been there, the easiest path, right? A to B. But sometimes it's really saying, let's talk about some different options and what those 3 creative solutions may be. Sometimes when we change our perspective and reframe things, that can be a really useful tool. And that can be as simple as choosing different action steps. We can't always control what's happening to us, but we can control our reaction to it. So really empowering them to realize what they can control in that moment can be very empowering for a child. Learning a new skill, and this goes for adults and kids, we all know as we've learned new skills as we're older in our lives, how that can be so empowering. So whether it's taking up our extracurricular activity like martial arts, learning a new craft, or learning to cook something new simply at home, since we're all spending a lot of time at home recently. Doing teamwork as a family, working together towards a common goal can be huge because then you're participating next to them, not necessarily leading them in it, but really partnering with your child. When we have students who are working synchronously, we really want to encourage them to understand where they're successful in the home. So for some kids, they've shared with us, it's really challenging for me to sit in class while my bed is 2 feet away from me. And that's really hard to get that motivation to participate. So giving the empowerment to say where in your workspace in your home would be the most successful. And sometimes that can be also changing throughout the day. It's not necessarily staying in one spot. So figuring out for them where the best place is for them. And with those celebrations, we want to acknowledge empowerment through every time they accomplish the smallest of things. We definitely want to do positive reinforcement, acknowledge that success, because that's going to empower them and want them to crave it more. Building a reward system, this can be really huge. And this is interesting because I have a lot of parents asking me personally, I know, and probably Julie as well, I don't know what motivates my kid, and that's so different for every student. It's really you finding out from your kid and knowing them in that relationship, right? So some people are motivated very intrinsically, which means they get that sense of pride. It's all about what they can accomplish for themselves and challenging themselves. And for some, it may start with extrinsic. So it may be like a token economy. It may be earning a trip somewhere or earning a special activity. Those are different ways. So building any kind of reward system to help kind of gain that empowerment, those are all tools to build that. And really finding out how they have a sense of belonging. Is that with a group in school? Is that with their positive friends? Is that within the family? So having a sense of belonging is really, really important for them. And lastly, I just want to highlight boundary setting and balance. So boundary setting is a great way to empower, not necessarily conflict, right? When we talk about the difference between being assertive and being too much. So we want to definitely encourage being assertive and knowing when to draw lines with your boundaries, especially when it comes to their peer groups. And then understanding to find balance in both your school, your friends, and your family. And where is your self-care in there? So those are really, really some great ways we wanted to share with you that we feel we see most effective when we work with students and talk about families on how they can empower. So Julie's going to come back and we're going to do some more work. Hang on. Thanks.
Thanks, Kristen. So one of the best ways to connect and strengthen relationships with your children is through spending time together. And I know some of you might be thinking, I've had a lot of time with my children in the last year. It has been a tough one, but truly some of those, and it's not always something big, it's sometimes some little things that you can do. And so one thing we wanted to do is to open this up a little bit, because I think other parents have the best ideas. And we'd like to find out, what is your favorite way to connect with your child? I had a very wise friend once tell me that her family would go on hikes, and they would call it forced family fun. My family has quickly adopted that, and we love it. So we have forced family fun. We go on a hike or we go do things like that, and it's just time to be together and enjoy that. So we're going to do another poll everywhere. This is a little bit of a different one. You're going to enter in, you're going to click on the link, and then it'll give you a space to enter in maybe an activity or something that you enjoy as a family and that you guys do together. So another thing for me that I really enjoyed as with my kids is when my kids were little, we did a night safari. And so we'd take the kids' stuffed animals and we'd put them in different rooms, and then we'd go through the house with a flashlight, and then we would just kind of narrate as we walked through. So just some goofy things that keep the kids entertained and they have fun. And now as the kids have gotten older, we played a floorball game the other night at our house, and it was a lot of fun. Whatever it is that works for your family. Again, I know Kristen said that possibly sometimes it's with your community, possibly it's with your church and doing things with your church, or possibly going for a bike ride. I like that, bike ride or game night. Game nights are a lot of fun. I am a master at Uno. My kids don't even want to play with me anymore because I love Uno. It's so much fun. Dancing to fun music, that is great. And see, the thing that I love about looking at these things, they do not have to be huge. It can be 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Just that chance for you to just enjoy yourselves, laugh a little bit, and have fun and connect as a family. It really just makes such a difference. And as we grow those memories and create those memories, it's just so important. So going out for coffee or donuts, that's great. Those special dates or special connections with your kids, those are wonderful. I love it. And then dates with your kids. That's great. Family dinner night, make dinner together and then enjoy it together. That is wonderful. We used to do picnics at my house where we would spread out a blanket and eat in the living room and eat pizza and watch. It was America's Funniest Home Videos. So that's been a little bit, but walking the dogs together, that's great. I wonder if everybody has their own dog or if it's just a couple dogs. I know Patty, one of the safe counselors, loves to walk her dogs. That's how she really connects with her babies. And so yeah, so let's go on to the next slide. Okay, and so we're talking about some of the activities and things like that. So how do we create, sometimes it's important that we create an environment for our kids to be able to open up to us, because sometimes maybe they aren't comfortable with it. And so this is something that there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. One of the things we talk about is meeting them where they are, which means if your kid is texting or Snapchat or TikTok, whatever it is, work with your kids on that. Tell them to show you their favorite, whatever the latest thing is that they're watching on TikTok. Or if they're texting, text back and forth. Have them teach you something on your phone that you didn't know. Those are just different ways that can have your kid connect with you a little bit, be a little bit more comfortable. And when your kids are ready to talk, it's so important to always take the time to be present. You don't want to miss that window of opportunity, because it's so hard as a parent. My son likes to come when I have fallen asleep on the couch, and then he wants to talk, and I am so tired and it's so hard to get up, but it's so important to take that time and to just stop and to do that. And you also want to create some intentional opportunities to open up. And this can look like some of the activities you guys talked about just a few minutes ago in our poll, or it could be driving together. That's one of the best opportunities for you to really get your kids to talk a little bit. Driving back and forth to maybe a sporting event or whatever it is, going to Denver, those types of things. When you have that time in the car, kids tend to open up a little bit more. And you guys talked a little bit about the date days or date events with your kids, and that is great too, because it really is that time where the kid feels special. It's their time to be with you. And always dinner together is such a big thing. That's important. The other thing is give your full attention to your kids. Give them your eye contact, really listen, stop what you're doing. I know my kids, I'll get called out for saying, you don't want to be doing that. That makes it really challenging because the kids know that you're not listening. They can read you. So don't underestimate the time of, underestimate the power of the time with your child. The days are long, but truly the years are short, and you really want to build those memories. So now that we've built an environment for your kids and getting them to be willing to open up, how do you get your kids to talk? So one of the things that's important is to make sure that you ask open-ended questions. Essentially, that's just something that is not a yes or no answer. So tell me one thing about your day, and I don't know or fine doesn't count. So you kind of can give them those parameters as well. Allow them to talk, but the important thing, remember we talked about analogy, is no judgment. You let them talk a little bit. You can have conversations around some things, or if things are questionable, you can talk about those. And then reflect with your child. It kind of shows them that you're listening. Wow, that sounds like you've really had a rough day. It's so important. And this is just one other idea that someone had shared with me is because they struggle with kind of the on the fly asking questions. So they keep a bowl of questions at their dinner table. And they said with how busy this year has been, their bowl is empty. So they're working on some new questions. But I think those are just some really important things to really help your kids to be able to open up and talk and know that you are listening and you're there for them. Kristen is going to come back over and talk a little bit about encouraging resiliency.
Thanks, Julie. All right, one of my favorite topics, resiliency. So we really want to encourage you as the parents to definitely model the resiliency for your kids. So ask yourself, we all have obviously the experience of the pandemic, and that's definitely been a time where we can build some resiliency and grit toward what we've gone through. But even looking back at what you were an adolescent, what is something that maybe you went through? Maybe you went through a family move, maybe you had a divorce in your family, and thinking about what helped you kind of get through that. That can be a great time to have those conversations with your kids that Julie mentioned, is really giving them a realistic view on how you built resiliency yourself as an adolescent. So that can be really, really good modeling for them. We want to encourage you to not give your kids all the answers. No, it's really tempting, especially in a time when they have so many challenges. And as a mom of 3 girls, I get that. I wanted to, like I said before, kind of plow that way. I know the quickest way from A to B, right? Because I've done it before. But when we take away that ability for them to find their own path, it really doesn't give them the ownership of really discovering it on their own. So by encouraging resiliency, we're empowering them to really find that grit, and that will serve them so well. And when they're facing those challenges and they're just doing the done, like, I can't do it, we got to learn the power of yet. It's one of my favorite phrases, the power of yet. So when we're saying we can't do this, yeah, you're right, you can't do this yet. So what do we need to do to gain those skills, to gain the confidence to move forward with the power of yet? So how can we get there? Because we're not there just yet. And when we look at the word failure and we look at fail, I love that I've seen this around in multiple webinars we've gone to. It's the first attempt in learning. So instead of looking at failure as an end-all be-all, it really is what did we learn from that? So we didn't necessarily fail. We just needed to learn the lesson so that we can move and do something different, change that action, change that perspective for the next time. And remember, it's okay for our kids to struggle sometimes, because again, that's where they're going to get that ownership of building their resiliency and grit. Setting a goal can be really helpful. This can be helpful because you can kind of sit back and reflect on it when it's done. So was it that you accomplished the entire goal? That's great. Again, let's do that positive reinforcement and have some rewards attached to that. Maybe we didn't accomplish the entire goal, but we did part of it. So talking about strategically, what can you do differently next time? How can I help support you through that? So setting a goal and maybe writing it down on black and white paper, because sometimes we need to reflect on it. So we do like vision boards with kids a lot of times in the schools to just help them remember what their goals are too, and all the steps they took to get toward it. Attitude's important. We talk about gratitude so much. And again, shifting that perspective to remain really positive. So again, not the failure piece, but the part of what we learned and what we could do differently. And remembering that sometimes we do need to ask for help, whether it be from a friend, whether it be from a sibling, an adult, a trusted adult, a teacher. So encouraging them. And I think it's great to ask your students, your children for yourself, who are their positive friends? Can you name your kids' best friends? Do you know who they are? Do you know who their trusted adults are in the schools? And if you don't know, those are conversations I would encourage every parent tonight to start having with their kids. Taking care of you and finding balance and help when needed. So with our students, we also we encourage our teachers to have those brain breaks when we need. We all know we sometimes get overwhelmed and we need to walk away. We need that mental renewal time. So make sure again that you're modeling that for your kids. A lot of adults and parents right now are working from home. So even though we have middle school and high school students that we talk a lot about, we know that they do often what our elementary are doing at those young ages of parroting, right? They parrot what we do, they do what we say, they see what we do, and we really need to make sure that we're giving time for ourselves too. So just making sure you're taking those breaks when needed. Reaching out to those extended family members. We've had more grandparents learning how to do Zoom than ever before, and that's a great opportunity to connect with extended family members and those that live in different places. And again, knowing who your students' friends are, but I would ask every parent tonight too, how much time are you able to spend with your friends, with your own peer group, and are your kids seeing that positive interaction of you in a friend role? Because oftentimes they don't think of us that way. So when they get to see us with our own friends, it's a great modeling opportunity as well. We're going to talk about some professional resources here, and if you ever have questions regarding that, I would encourage everyone to reach out to your school counseling team. Every school is equipped with the most amazing counselors that have all those resources for you. Again, we have our parent academies just like tonight. We love to give you guys information, and I believe on the District 20 site there is a space that if there's a topic you would like to learn about in the future, you can give that feedback to us and we will do everything in our power to make that happen for you. So if there's a topic that you would like to learn more about, get some more information, more resources, please put it in there and let us know. We really appreciate the feedback. We're going to look at some crisis resources as well. So again, we will be sharing this PowerPoint. If you want to get your phone out right now, though, I always encourage every parent to have a picture of this on their phone. These are some of our local crisis resources that your school counselors have access to as well. So this is a great time to just take this picture. You have all the phone numbers here. Even though it's not a crisis, there's also a talk to text line that we encourage our students in the schools to use. And I've even told my kids, make sure your mom and dad have it, because it's not just for kids, it's for adults too. So texting talk to 38255, which is part of that suicide prevention lifeline, will link you to an LPC that is 24/7. It's completely anonymous, completely free. There's so many great resources out there, and we're always willing and so excited to share anything we can with you. All right, I know Martha mentioned this in the beginning. I just want to recircle back around. We have a couple of parent academies coming up that are fantastic. Sources of Strength is going to be on April 13th at 6 p.m. Sources of Strength is one of our SEL wellness programs that we have implemented in a lot of the schools. We're pushing for even more. It's one of the great programs that that we're excited to be part of and excited to have our peer leaders in the district, and we'd love for you to learn more about that. Mental Health First Aid is another one that will be on April 24th. So please reach out to the district if you have any further questions about that. There should be information and more descriptions on the Parent Academy site and links in District 20. All right, and this is just a great quote we wanted to end with. You don't have to be positive all the time. It's perfectly okay to feel sad, angry, annoyed, frustrated, scared, or anxious, especially in this last year. Having feelings doesn't make you a negative person, it makes you human. So now we'd just like to have an opportunity, if there's any questions at all. We have several safe counselors here in the area. We'd love to open that up for you. If we have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat and we will address as they come in. We did see, I know, thank you for your patience again, with the poll everywhere. Sometimes the lag is a little bit slow, so we saw more answers coming in. Someone said charades, which I think is so much fun. We play that at Thanksgiving all the time. And a couple of the answers. So thank you so much for your contributions. It's nice to learn from each other. That's where I get most of my mom advice is from my mom friends. So we wanted a chance for parents to connect as well. So it's great for you guys to be able to share what kind of things you're doing, what kind of things that are successful in your home, because we really are our best resources. It's not just in schools, it's in everywhere. So
These are a couple other big ones.
Oh, some other ones came in. So we had jigsaw puzzles. That's fantastic. Those, so it's funny because I think it's different, and depending on you, I get super frustrated with jigsaw puzzles, but I love that someone actually does really well with those. Those are good patient teachers. Patience is my not strong suit, so I probably should do more jigsaw puzzles. In the winter, we camp inside in a tent. I absolutely love that. This weekend, as you guys probably know, we're going to get hit with quite a snowstorm. So that might be a fun time. Even when my girls were much older, we love to get the sheets out and get out chairs and make little forts and put it right under the TV where we could snuggle up and watch a movie. So that's a great one. I love that. And yes, camping during the summer. We disconnect to connect. That's a beautiful way of saying it. Absolutely. We did that ourselves. We invested in a pop-up when our kids were really young, and we have made some of the most wonderful memories camping. And I like that disconnection piece, especially with the year we've had. That's a time when you can really be around nature and so many healthy activities with hiking. We're so blessed to live in Colorado where there's so many trails. I feel like you go somewhere new every weekend and still discover something new all the time. So we are so very lucky to have all these things really at our doorstep. How amazing is that? All right, so Julie's going to come back on over. Thank you guys so much.
We have a couple of questions. One of them is with the text to talk helpline, what is an LPC? So an LPC is a licensed professional counselor, and that's someone who has a master's degree in counseling, and they are there and they text back and forth with you to help you work through whatever it is that you're struggling with. Another question we had is, what is a warning sign I need to get my child help with anxiety? For me, the key really with anxiety, it's such a struggle and it's so hard. But what is so important is if it's getting in the way of your functioning every day or their functioning every day, that is when you need to get help. It's really important to find that support and figure out how to support your child with anxiety, because it can be a real struggle. And I don't think we have any more questions, so we are going to wrap up tonight. I hope you enjoyed your evening, and go spend some time with your family.